The New Orleans Breakers have a new head coach in John DeFilippo. We're jumping into the speculation zone to talk about the Memphis Showboats. All that and more on episode 37 of the USFL podcast.
1, 2, 3.
Welcome back, everybody, to another amazing edition of the USFL podcast. I'm the ref representing USFL Newsroom, the number one source in USFL news. And if you look to my right, you might say, well, that is not Zach Kyleman. We're here joined by Jim Meunier, Zach's other co-host, funny enough, of Inside the Walls podcast, coming in to fill in for Zach because he was too good for us this week. Jim, do you know what the real truth is?
He doesn't want to be with us anymore. That's
No.
what the real truth.
It goes deeper than that. He did not want to hear what I'm about to say. The Houston Astros are the World Series champions, baby. I said it was going to happen. You should have put money on it. We made it a reality. No cheating needed. I told them they could. Here's the thing. I got down. I said, look, I know you don't have traditional refs in Major League Baseball, but if anybody gives you a hard time, come talk to the ref. They said, no need, my man. We got it. We got it in the bag. They said, they even told me, here, this is inside baseball, no pun intended. Bregman, he said, ref, let me tell you a little bit something. We're going to let them win the first game. I said, oh, really? You're going to do that? You're going to give them a little boost like that? You know what? We're actually going to let them win 2 games. I said, aren't you worried? Aren't you worried that maybe they'll win the others? They said, we have no worries in the world. And they showcased it. They had another parade. Mattress Mac, he's got a brand new bag of money. And I'm telling you, he should invest in those Houston gamblers, get in the football business. But Jim, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. You're excited. Your Astros won. My sports world's a little right now. My Bruins are doing good. The Celtics are being the Celtics. But as a Bostonian fan, I want to say thank you to the Houston Astros for taking care of Philly, because Philadelphia, great fans, but they get really crazy and rowdy for not winning championships. Besides that 1 year in 2019.
Well, this might be the Philly year, the runner-up year, because we saw USFL championship.
Yep.
Philly runner-up. Now we have the Phillies runner-up. And look, the Eagles, they're doing what every team that wins all the way into the playoffs does. And win confidently. They need a loss. They need a loss to get them back on track. I know people think I'm crazy when I say things like that. I was actually worried the Astros wouldn't pull out the World Series, as crazy as that sounds, because they swept going into it. And I've seen the Tigers do that too many times, and it never goes well.
No, I think that to be on the NFL subject with the Eagles, they are, I like to say, the carbon copy of the Buffalo Bills from 2 years ago.
Right.
Winning on so many games, they're getting the hype train, but when they get in the playoffs, they'll play a very well-experienced team who's been there and done that, and they'll lose.
Yep.
I know Philadelphia Eagle fans, you might say because I'm a Boston fan that you want to see its demise. No, it's the Eagles, that team right there is not the same team from 2019. They don't have a lot of the same people there. They don't have the experience there. Crap, the quarterback coach there is no longer he's in the USFL. But for the Eagles, that's still it's still a great run. That was the World Series. That whole playoff, the path they went on was so entertaining and so enjoyable. I live in Jacksonville, so seeing the sad faces of Braves fans put a smile on my face, and seeing the sad faces of Mets fans put a bigger smile on my face. So I was a big fan of Philadelphia. I was a big fan of the Houston Astros because they played both Yankees and the Mets, and I was like, what's a better world? The new city of New York suffering another year without winning any championship in any of their sports. And that goes to you Giants and Jets fans too, so you be prepared.
I will say there was a great sketch, I think it was either week 2 of the NFL, maybe week 3, where they showed this is on the Fox morning NFL show, and they showed the New York sports fans, and they had the Giants and the Jets, and they were trying to argue that the Buffalo Bills aren't New York sports fans, right? So I don't know. It was funny. I'm not doing it any justice here. But before we get into the news, we got some housekeeping items. You know what everybody's favorite thing is, Jim? Social media, especially right now, Twitter. That's the whole thing. We're verified now. You know what? $8, sign me up. You can follow us at USFL Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're most live on Twitter. We love Twitter. You know, our new Elon overlord. Sign us up. But here's what I need. I know Elon Musk isn't listening, but hey, you know what? Maybe he is. Maybe he's a spring football fan. I need that Cybertruck in my driveway. You bought Twitter. Now let's get that Cybertruck moving, because I'm tired of driving a little Fiat 500 with no hubcaps. Hey, but you know what? If you don't have hubcaps, you know what? You can get some fresh new gear. Our boys at Royal Retros, I almost went 503 Retros, which is their old name. Royal Retros, royalretros.com. They got all sorts of things. Retro, USFL, XFL, World League of Football. They got some baseball and hockey there mixed in as well. And here's the good thing. You can save 10% using coupon code USFL Podcast. It helps us, it helps them, and it helps you. And you know what? Christmas is around the corner, which I never talk about on this show. We actually have merch. I never shill the merch. But you know what? Christmas is coming up. If you got a kid, you got a friend, you got anybody that likes the USFL Podcast, head over to USFLcast.com, hit the shop. There's t-shirts, all sorts of dumb stuff over there. Jerseys, we're giving one away. Just get us to 5K. I think that's it. Hey, we did the intro. Let's get to the news. We got some big news. And you know, it's interesting that you're on here too, because it actually works out. Everybody's been wondering who's taking over for Larry Fedora for my Breakers. Well, we got it here. John DeFilippo coming in. And I mean, this guy's got a nice little resume. He served as the quarterback coach. You mentioned it, for the Eagles during their Super Bowl win in 2018. He also spent time with the Vikings, and Zach's missing out, the Bears. Now, the interesting thing I'm here. Here's what really kind of gets me.
Is he really missing out, though?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what Zach's doing, actually. I don't know what he's off doing. But here's the real interesting tidbit to come out of this here. He spent time with the Vikings. You know who else was in the Vikings at that time, along with John? Coach Flip. Breakers quarterback, Kyle Sloter.
Oh,
so I mean,
right.
That is just having that connection. These guys have worked together in the past. That is a nice little boost. Now, he's young too, 44. We were just talking, you know, it's funny. No curtains on the USFL podcast. This is your first time on the show. We were talking about this before the show. We were, 38, man, that's getting up there for playing age, 38, 39. But 44, that's pretty young for coaching age, right?
It's amazing how it changes, doesn't it?
Right, yeah, right. I mean, it's just in that little span. You're too old for one, too young for the other. But, I mean, this guy, he's young, but his resume's stacked. I mean, he spent time with the Giants, the Raiders, the Jets, San Jose State, the Raiders again, the Browns, the Eagles, the Vikings, the Jaguars, and most recently with the Bears, quarterbacks coach, passing game coordinator, and quarterbacks coach. So one thing that we see kind of throughout here, he's got a lot of emphasis on the quarterbacks. He's got working experience with the current New Orleans Breakers quarterback. He's coming in young, which is kind of like the trend in the NFL too. You look at the Rams,
correct?
Young coach.
Arizona,
Miami, maybe even the Lions. I don't know if Dan Campbell doesn't look young, but I mean, he wasn't playing not too long ago.
No,
right?
It's trending that way in the NFL now.
Right. So I think, I mean, even when you look at the recent spring leagues, they haven't even gone this young going into that. So you know what? This guy now, I've talked about it on before on the shows. You know, when we think of spring leagues, a lot of people think of players, right? Yeah. This is an opportunity for players to showcase their skills, players to move up to the NFL, players to even make a name for themselves and stick around. I mean, you know it best coming from an arena scene. There's dudes that make a career in arena football, and they're there year in and year out. We just never got that far with spring football, at least in our general lifetime. Maybe when we were little children, but not in our adult or teenage lives. Now we're getting to see it, and we're going to see some of those guys grow. But coaching-wise, we've seen it on the assistants. We've seen it with some of the position coaches. Now we're seeing a head coach come in with a from the youth angle.
Yeah.
And I think they can try some different things out and probably put the edge on some of the coaches. Now, you're from Jacksonville, the Jaguars. 2019. Remind me, was that a good year or a bad year for the Jaguars?
It's the Jacksonville Jaguars, man. Every year is a bad year. But no, that was the year that they brought in Nick Foles.
Oh, yeah.
To be the next generation, the next quarterback for Jaguars. And in that same year, they drafted a quarterback in the 7th round called Minshew. So John DeFilippo was the architect of Minshew Mania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which,
come to think of it, yeah. So
now I'm curious, how do you think his style's going to work in something like the USFL?
Well, if you look at the past of John DeFilippo's offenses, just him as an offensive coordinator, especially with Minnesota, and more importantly, when he was in Jacksonville, he's a type of coordinator that likes to spread out his receivers, 4 wide, 5 wide, sometimes have that running back, that 3rd or 4th wide receiver play, that slot guy that's a pivotal like a running back. And his offense is like he did all the time in Jacksonville was quick slant routes or 5-yard in routes or hook hitches and hooks, trying to speed up the offense. And one thing about DeFilippo is that he's an offensive coordinator that's not afraid to take the deep ball. When he played in Minnesota, or coached in Minnesota, Minnesota had the highest rate of 20-yard passes or more in the NFL. They were number 1. The quarterback was Kirk Cousins, of course, and no matter what day it is, it's still Kirk Cousins. Like people say, describe Kirk Cousins to me. Well, Kirk Cousins.
Right.
No description. It's just Kirk Cousins. You don't know who you're going to get except for Kirk Cousins. But in Jacksonville, he had a tendency of quick slant routes. Oh, there's a DJ Chark. Let's throw deep. Oh, there's I think that's a time when we still had Cecil Shorts, so he throws Cecil Shorts. But he kept everything within the 10-yard barrier, but he kept throwing it deep. But the one thing I noticed from DeFilippo, and especially it was a big topic here in Jacksonville when he was OC, is that the offenses were explosive the first 8-9 weeks of a season because his offense teams, in the NFL, again, I'm not going to bash USFL players. The NFL is the elite of the elite. They're the best.
Sure.
They're paid just as much as you, and their job is to, break down your game plan and trying to beat you. As the season progressed, his offense's tendency was decreased. Like when he was in Jacksonville, the first 8 weeks, it was like 25, 26 points a game. Mm-hmm. And the second half of the season, he was only averaging 17. And what I noticed is teams figure out, especially the second time around, how to play his offenses. And one of the things that really hurt Jacksonville in 2019, and I even had a thing about this in my old podcast, is that Jacksonville's blitz rate for conversions, blockage, and first downs was the worst in the NFL. That was under Dean Filippo's offenses. Mm-hmm. Jacksonville couldn't block anybody, couldn't get first downs, couldn't have a productive offense because his offenses crumble because of blitz packages, because defenses are like, you know what, we're going to try and get to the quarterback fast. You only got 5 blockers. We're bringing 6 or 7. You got to make your quarterback make smart decisions. And early in the year, Minshew was making those plays. He that's why Minshew Mania became what it was. Right. He was making those plays. But when teams started figuring Jacksonville out and figuring out their offense, that's when the offense started to slow down. But it didn't just happen in Jacksonville. It happened in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins. But translating that to the Breakers, especially with Fedora, the transition of the offensive scheme is not going to change because Fedora ran the similar style offense he did at University of North Carolina, and then bringing that to the Breakers in the USFL and then getting Filippo, you're going to see not really a big change, but you're going to see a better quarterback play, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. The reason why I say that is Minshew, even though he's in the NFL, he was labeled when he was coming out at that time as a prototypical XFL player.
For sure,
People thought he was going to be Seattle Dragons back in the day because he was considered that guy that's going to miss the draft but could go in the XFL. Unfortunately, he just went to the NFL. He made the squad. Filippo made a 7th round draft pick look that good. that will be a type of quarterback, whoever it is, just Schroeder or anyone that's in the Breakers right now, to learn that system and learn that fast-paced offense, because that will translate to the next level in the NFL. And also for DeFilippo, he has. I'm looking at his resume, ladies and gentlemen. He has a resume. You know where his aspirations are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be, I'm going to stay in the USFL for 5 years. It's, I want to get experience as a head coach, so when an NFL job opens up, I can be, the next in line or a candidate for that job.
For sure, which should make
in the NFL right now,
mm-hmm.
but he doesn't have anything higher than offensive coordinator now. Put that head coaching title in the Breakers, possibly a USFL championship, maybe produce a guy that goes in the NFL. An owner would be like, hey, he's done this. He has credentials. He's put people in the NFL. Let's give him a shot.
Yep.
And I know a lot of USFL fans may not like that, but not everyone's Jeff Fisher, who's just fine to have that cozy. It's like, I did my time in the NFL. That being Michigan's perfect for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying it. There are going to be referees, players, coaches that their aspirations is not the USFL. It's the 3-letter league that's currently playing right now that pays millions of dollars. That's aspiration. But for Filippo in New Orleans, I think the fans are going to enjoy it, because I don't think that offense is going to change at all. I loved his offense in Jacksonville. It's just that because in the NFL, you're going to catch on fire, and someone's going to find a way to turn that fire off. And Jacksonville at that time didn't have the talent. They still don't have the talent, honestly. Look at what we do every single week with Lawrence, who a better team than in 2019. We still lose, but anyways. Filippo's offenses are going to be exciting, especially how New Orleans was last year, a very run-heavy offense early in the season. One thing I noticed about the USFL, I don't know if you and Zach have talked about this, the USFL last year had a lot of run-based first offenses to start the year, because they were trying to figure each other out. Then the passing game started to get into it later, unless it was the New Jersey Generals or the Birmingham Stallions last year that had the passing attack. All the other teams struggled until halfway through the season. But New Orleans was that defense, the old school football. We're going to play good defense. We're going to run the football.
Yeah.
That was made them successful, and that's why New Orleans kept in the playoff picture the whole season, and they made the playoffs. Filippo will actually have a more passing threat. I think for New Orleans fans, you're going to have a pass-first offense to develop the run, even though you already know you have a solid running game. So that's going to translate more. The question is who will be the guy under helm? Will it be Slaughter or will it be someone else? But his ability to basically mold a quarterback, he's done with Kirk Cousins, Nick Foles. He turned Nick Foles in 2019 for the Eagles to a Super Bowl 2017, 2018, a Super Bowl quarterback.
Yeah.
And he turned you into mention minutes. So he has developed quarterbacks. Now he just needs that resume as a head coach. And if he does that in New Orleans and shows that he can do it, there's going to be an NFL team 2 or 3 years from now and go, let's bring this guy in for an interview and see if he can be the next guy to lead his organization. But I like the pickup. When Zach told me that DeFilippo is going to New Orleans, I was like, man, that name sounds very familiar. He goes, he used to coach you guys down. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. So, but even though I didn't like him in Jacksonville, because we hold our NFL teams to a different standard than our other teams that we follow, I think he'll be very successful in the USFL. And if he gets the right pieces, and especially a right quarterback, he's going to have a very explosive offense, and that might be a problem in the South Division. It could be a problem for your gamblers or the Stallions or the TBA, Tampa Bay Bandits. Speculation, the Tampa Bay Bandits, whatever. But I think the Breakers are a team that are, with him, are going to have a very explosive offense. I do think that game plan that he had in Jacksonville will work very well in the USFL, because I think defenses in the USFL are not to that caliber of NFL defenses. So it's only a 10-week season. By the time teams figure him out, it'd be like week 8, so they'd be already 8-2 or 8 and something. So, okay, well, we may not even play you anymore. So it's going to take a while, but I think if he has the right quarterback in the system, if he continues to have that solid running game that New Orleans did last year, they'll be fine. And the South Division, I don't know. This may take people off in the USFL. I thought the South Division was the better division throughout from top to bottom.
Well, Yeah, I think most people agreed with that sentiment. I think people agreed just with the Stallions and the Breakers alone. I mean, like you were saying earlier, Sloter was injured for a good part of that season, and the Breakers still came out and got to the playoffs. And I mean, Sloter wasn't. I mean, United by football. I cannot wait for it to come back. But it showed one thing: Sloter didn't have an injury.
Mm-hmm.
There was more injuries than there was Kyle Sloter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, here is the good thing. So you kind of touched on the Breakers defense from last year. They were one of the better defenses.
They were ranked number 1 until probably, I think, week 7 or 8 until Houston took that realm. Or Houston's I'm not gonna bash your Gamblers, but Houston's defense kept them in the season.
Yeah.
Because that offense of Houston was like, oh, geez Louise. Like, Houston's offense or watching this paint dry? I'll watch this paint dry. But, yeah, it's only so much Reggie Northrup can do for the Houston defense to keep you guys in the game. But, yeah, I do, yeah.
Well, our friends at the USFL network, so they actually confirmed earlier that it looks like most of, if not all, of the defensive coaching staff will be returning to the Breakers. So Coach Flip at least has something to rely on the defensive side. They're not going to have to like re-scheme everything because I don't know if you're aware of this, Jim. The Gamblers, man, they got fleeced on the defensive coaching side. Like, they're mostly picked over and gone. So that's unfortunate. So for the Breakers, that's a nice step up. And honestly, like you said, this might be the big play here. If it takes about 6-8 weeks for these coaches to pick up on Coach Flip's game and keeping the defense, I mean, he might have the edge up on all these teams on that alone. Every other team, they're going to know the playing scheme. Coach Flip, I mean, you can look at footage from the other places he played at, but is it apples to apples or is it apples to oranges, right? We're talking about two different games, similar rules, slightly different rules, different styles of play, really at the end of the day. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, one thing from the press release that I found quite interesting is it wasn't like one person in charge of hiring this coach. They had a committee. They had the Breakers head coach selection committee. So Brian Woods, president of the league, I mean, it makes sense. He was joined by a couple other folks, though. So Daryl Johnston, executive vice president of the USFL, which, again, makes sense. But there's some interesting other names in here. Jason Garrett, who we've seen as an analyst on TV as recent, but former head coach in that area, right? Sort of, kind of. A little bit west, but either way, NFL name.
A little bit west, a couple hundred miles west.
Whatever. NBC Sports exec. So this is interesting, right? Owned by Fox, but we have NBC kind of in the mix too. John Miller. But this one, Bill Polian, which, all right, Hall of Fame general manager, AAF guy, right? Has a little bit of heritage in the spring football scene.
Yeah.
So they had, I think, a good mix of guys here to vet who the next leader of this team is. Now, according to the release, he knocked it out of the park. Everybody kind of liked his style, his game plan, where he was looking at going with this team.
Yeah.
But I think this is interesting to see that, okay, we got guys working with the NFL, guys working with Fox, guys working with NBC, and then again, Bill Polian making himself known in the spring football world again. What are your thoughts on this? This is a nice mix, I'd say.
Well, the one thing I've always liked about the USFL is that they have two entities, the NBC and Fox, that are making all the judgment. This is not based on a single, icon or an ego that's running the league. These two companies have really put money and investment in there, and to make your product better, you want to get people who have done the job, who have potential of even being getting up to a next level. And plus, Bill Polian, he's been around the block. Like, the guy's a Hall of Famer. He's built teams. He's consulted NFL organizations on hiring people. So you have minds that have, they're football minds. It's just not like me or you filling out an application to get a coaching job and we get hired and we go out there and we go Urban Meyer it in our first year. So it's a good for me. The one thing I criticize the other league for is rushed. Let's put the product out. The USFL has they got everything together in the first year, but they were and they went step by step by step, and that's how they did with the coaches this time around. And if they're doing this for every coaching change and for the league eventually, I think is a good testament of how the two identities, the NBC and Fox, how they really care about the league. And because this is their product.
Right.
And it's on their televisions. So, and honestly, they're going to have competition this year. So getting the best product out there, you need the best minds in the game that are available. And I think with these guys, especially when you get Polian doing some of the decisions, and you get Jason Garrett, even though we know his history with the single star team in the past.
Well, he did help build one of the greatest NFL analysts ever in Tony Romo. I mean, maybe he didn't, the quarterback piece.
He didn't create him. He made him so involved that the analyst actually calls a play before the play is even snapped, which is scary. It's like, man, you're telling me that's one thing I've always said about Tony Romo. His intelligence for the game is 10,000 times advanced from his skill. Like he has a Peyton Manning mind without the Peyton Manning talent.
Right. He'd be a great coach though. A great coach. Yeah. That's somebody I'd love.
He's actually a pretty good golfer. I'm surprised he didn't go straight to golfing after he got done playing football. But that's one thing I have kudos with Tony Romo. People don't like him, but I love Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. They're the best crew. I want them to tag team with Chris Collinsworth, and that three guys should be the Super Bowl announcers every single year.
Right.
Because you got guys like, I don't know, Jim. It's going to happen. And you got the other guys like, now here's a guy. It'd be epic for a Super Bowl coverage every single year. But speaking of the process for the USFL, I like how they're doing this. They're not rushing to hires. Fedora's been renounced his retirement / leaving the team for a couple of, maybe 2 months now, maybe 3 months. So the USFL knew it. They didn't panic. They took time and they waited. And they selected this guy, and Dean Filippo, who has a tremendous record, a tremendous resume. He doesn't have baggage. That's one thing about coaches this day and age, especially in the arena game that I cover. There are a lot of coaches, but they're coaches with baggage, and it's not baggage like they're bad, like they did dirty stuff. It's like in the arena game, unlike USFL, when you're a coach, you're also the GM, so you're coaching and you're also paying the bills. And people with baggage, usually the ones that are a little shady on the bill part. So in the USFL, they're not doing that. So you got vetting, you got the resume, you got people who have talked to him, like let's say your references. He checked off all the marks, and that's what you want in a coach. Even though he may not be not every coach is Bill Belichick. Not every coach is Nick Saban. You're not going to get that. But you will get coaches who have played in lower level football, especially I forgot the guy in Canada. He played for the Toronto Argonauts coached there for 20 years. He has six or seven Grey Cup titles.
Tressman?
And no, Tressman only has 2.
Oh, okay, whatever.
It's someone in the CFL. I don't know. I forgot what team it is, but he's like Bobby Bowden of the CFL. He's been there forever, and he retired. And every time there's a new coach, his name pops up. And I'm like, homeboy's retired. He's been there and done that. He's not coming back. It's like when Nick Saban retired. I was joking with my buddy a couple of weeks. I was like, Nick Saban would pass away and been dead for 5 years, and he'll still be the top candidate for an open coach position in college football. Right. I'm like, there's a problem. He can't get him. Why? What's wrong? He's a good coach. Nah. He's been gone for a while. Yeah. But how the USFL is doing it, I really like how they're approaching it. They're not rushing. They vetted the guy. He doesn't have any baggage, and he produces quarterbacks and he molds quarterbacks. And for the USFL, that's you and Zach had talked on one of your first podcasts of the season that the quarterback play had to improve tremendously. And as the season progressed, it got better. But Dean Filippo is a quarterback guy. So I think you're going to have a quarterback that gets into New Orleans in week 4, week 5, you're going to realize that he is the probably the best quarterback in the league. Don't know who it is at the time. But I think it's a good hire. And for a league that has now competition with an icon and of the other league, I think how they're approaching everything, would they say slow is better than going super fast? Because we saw two leagues get out of the gate instantly, start off fast, and
Well, that's my concern with the XFL, and I've never been shy with it, and I like them both. I'm just a fan of more football, right?
I'm a fan of both teams. Yeah, I just don't.
But this is a Hail Mary if I've ever seen one from the XFL. This is, dude, the Arlington football, the coaching staff is ridiculous. 2 offensive coordinators and 2 defensive coordinators on top of every other position coach and a head coach. Bro, those salaries, and I won't say it, but I heard some inside baseball on the inner workings of the XFL earlier this week on some of the other business sides of things. Not that it was it wasn't like red alarm bells. I don't want to make it out to be a big thing, but it feels like they're way heavier staffed on the coaching side than they are on the business side. And that's scary. Yeah. That's scary because you need it. You need a little bit of evenness there. Now, because here's the thing.
Agreed.
They're going to spend a lot of money, Jim. They're going to spend 7, maybe 8 stadiums. We don't know what's happening with Vegas. They were looking at a high school. Everybody got pissed off that report came out. Whatever. It is what it is.
Sam Boyd.
Well, they can't do Sam Boyd. They have there's a no compete with, so you can't play at Sam Boyd. Allegiant, I'm sure would let them, but why
does no compete Sam Boyd? Is it because of the original XFL?
No. The team that currently plays there, or somebody uses it as a train. I'm doing it injustice on the reasoning.
Probably a soccer.
But
club.
yeah, there's a no compete, so nobody else can use it. And so, I mean, you could go to Allegiant, but ignore the money factor. We saw how that went with the Guardians in New York with a big stadium.
Massive stadium.
Vegas is even worse because here's the thing that everybody thinks Vegas is the perfect place to throw something, but they never think about the people that live in Vegas. Everywhere else in the country, you work an 8 to 5 and 9 to 5. No. Not Las Vegas. You're working nights. You're working weekends. You're off during the day, right? Most of the time. So, you might be able to get tourists, but you can't bank on creating a team solely for tourists, especially when it's in February.
That's like how it is in Orlando. Like the people who live in Orlando hate going in the city because that's home to all the tourists. And the people who are actually in the city don't live in Orlando. They're from outside of Orlando or whatever. Yeah, it's like I love this is USFL podcast, and I love spring football. I cover in the National Arena League, and I get irritated when I see teams pop up in small towns that A, are not big enough to support an organization, or B, the arena is so old. Why are you even putting a team there in the first place? And C, you just have owners that think this is a toy and not an organization. I love the XFL. I love how they're doing everything, the coaches, but compared it to the USFL, because the USFL has actually done something that the XFL hasn't done since 2001, and that's complete a season and have a champion. Again, the XFL's defending champion is still the 2001 LA Extreme, so that's been a long time. But I look at the USFL and go, their product's better. Yes, people bash them about the hubs, which was a stupid argument because they were pulling almost a million viewers a game on certain days. The thing about the XFL that was so good in 2020 is that it was an itch that people wanted. It was Vince McMahon, and they put teams in cities that honestly were very successful.
Right.
The Defenders, the Battlehawks, excuse me, Defenders, the Battlehawks, the Houston Roughnecks, and it was successful. But you also had teams in that league that failed. The Tampa Bay Vipers, the Guardians,
Los Angeles
couldn't draw, couldn't get fans, and the USFL did something right is that you have the hub, and you have potential of hubs this year, and they're slowly pushing out to the cities. The XFL is going to have 8 cities,
maybe 7.
Travel
we don't
costs.
know. Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
This is the thing that gets me about it is they talk about, but they're doing a hub. They're all going to be in Arlington. I'm like, yeah, but you still got to get from Arlington to Seattle and Arlington to Orlando and DC. Like, I mean, you still got to get to these places. It's not free.
And gas prices are not cheap.
No. Well, that's the thing that I get it. I get it. People want to see fans in stands when they watch football. But here's the thing. Here's always my take. The USFL and Fox and even NBC to a certain extent, because we see they're more involved than just being a broadcast partner. Mm-hmm. They're doing this in a way to make sure that they're isn't just a season 2, but a season 3, a season 10, right? Mm-hmm. And hey, you know what? If it takes them a couple extra years to get there, sign us up, because you said it earlier. The USFL did something that hasn't been done since the XFL in 2001. Well, they're about to do something that hasn't been done since the USFL in the 80s and have a second season.
86, 87. It's actually have 2 back-to-back seasons.
So, hey, you know what? Sign me up there. If we get 2 hubs, you know what? 100% better than last year. Up to 4 hubs? Hey, now we're talking. You get to season 3, up to season 5, you get all these hubs in there. And then, this is the elephant in the room that, people have rumored about.
Yeah.
But as they're moving into these hubs, and we're going to talk about this in the speculation zone in a little bit, but as they move into these hubs, you would assume they're moving into a place that maybe they already have conversations with potential owners and investors on those sides of the piece, on that side of the piece,
Like Protective Field in Birmingham is a nice facility. It's a good size.
Oh, it's real nice too.
And people say, well, that's too big of a stadium. Well, when Birmingham played, the Stallions played there, they were putting a half to 2/3 of the stadium was full. That's perfect size. That's why, you look in the XFL, the Defenders were so successful. Perfect
stadium. Yeah.
The Audi Field was successful. So when, I would love to see the USFL when they go to these neutral sites, especially not neutral sites, but when they go to their home stadiums, new home stadiums, especially the Philadelphia Stars, go play in where the Union play in that soccer stadium right by the river. Perfect setup. Detroit, I really don't know yet.
Well,
maybe
they're getting a football team out there, so they could probably. I assume that if they do build a football stadium, Ford Field is there, but that's a tough one, man, because now you're in big stadiums.
Also, the name Michigan, you don't have to play in Detroit.
Well, exactly right.
You can go play at Eastern Michigan University or Western Michigan or those sides stadium because your name is Michigan, so that's a good fit. But I think they'd rather would stay in where the fans are. But I think Detroit's getting an MLS team here pretty soon. I believe so. Or they're near, and so that I would love to see the USFL trying to work out a deal with the MLS and the MLS teams. Play in those size stadiums. They are successful there. Like when the Orlando team for XFL was announced, you better play in Orlando City. It's a perfect size stadium. You could put 19,000 people in that stadium and it will be sold out, even though the stadium's 22. Nope. They're going to the Citrus Bowl. That's a 65,000 seat stadium. Half of it's going to look empty. Stop playing in big stadiums. Like in Houston, you have the Dynamite, you have Rice Field, you have where the Roughnecks play, but I guarantee that's locked down. Roughnecks stadium. That's locked down. So you got the where the Dynamite play or
BBVA.
Dynamo.
We have BBVA. We have Rice Stadium. We have all sorts of colleges. Shit, man. Yeah. I shouldn't say that, but we have a stadium in Katy, Texas, which is right outside of Houston. It's a high school stadium. It seats, I think, 12 to 16,000.
Yeah.
It's a nice stadium. I'm going to say, you know what? You want to get your feet wet. That's an option. And I'm telling you, I'm not even joking. Mattress Max, $75 million. I'm telling you, you can get a good chunk, if not all of the team for less than $75 million. Get into that football game. Let's make it happen. Let's start rolling some dice here in Houston.
Yeah. That's why I think for the USFL, trying to find MLS, like Pittsburgh has a USL team. Their soccer stadium is maybe 8,000-9,000.
It's
small.
weird. Yeah.
It's small, but it's right there on the river. But you have colleges that are around there. You have Duquesne, but how it spells like Duquesne. You can play. They have a football stadium there that has 20,000 seats, so you can actually play there if they wanted to. But for me, me and you and Zach, I've talked to Zach about this all the time. For success for a league like the USFL and XFL, stop playing in big stadiums. That kills you because here's a little tidbit for arena football. If you want to get a little arena football knowledge, the Orlando Predators play in Amway Arena. Amway Arena is the most expensive building in arena football, not the NAL, same as the IFL and the CIF. Sure. The Predators pay the Amway Center $50,000, and I know a lot of us, man, that's not a lot of money. In arena football, that is a crap load of money. Let's just say, for instance, the Jacksonville Sharks play in VyStar's Veterans Memorial Arena. They only pay $17,000 all year.
Yeah.
That's almost $30,000 more. And the hockey teams that play in that same building, for instance, the Orlando Solar Bears play in the Amway Center, $50,000 a year. They have 36 home games. Orlando only has 7. That's expensive.
Yeah, sure is.
And that's just for an arena. Now, let's say rent out a stadium like the Guardians did up in the MetLife. I guarantee they were paying $200K to just rent the stadium out for a season. And they didn't even get through the season because of the virus.
Thank you. Yes, you remembered.
Or what I like to call it.
Yeah,
the
there
cough.
You
go. But yeah, USFL protect us. Like this hub city in Birmingham was a perfect idea. I didn't understand why people hated not having. They were fans there as the season progressed, as the weather started to get nice and spring weather got warmer. More people started going to games, and if Plain and Canton didn't tell you the truth about this league, they wouldn't sell out that championship. For sure.
Game. In a place where no city's based out of.
Exactly.
I mean, that's exactly what the league needed. And I would say this, and people hate me for saying this because they're worried that the league's going to get an idea out of this. I wouldn't be super angry if Canton was like a third hub. Like if you have 2 major hubs and a third hub, and Canton kind of served as that. Here's the thing. You could, for football, we were talking about tourism. You shouldn't really base it off of tourism. But one thing, Canton, birthplace of, American football. Sign them up. They got a stadium. You have the Pro Football Hall of Fame right next door. And then here's the real kicker. It's probably not going to be ready for the next season, but probably by season 3, they're building like a hotel on the other side of the stadium. Correct. It's going to be a whole like football center. And I'm telling you, for me, especially, hey, you know what? If I'm a football guy and I want to go on a football vacation, I can go to the Hall of Fame, stay right at the Hall of Fame in the hotel, and maybe you even get a discount on the Hall of Fame or the game ticket, depending on which one you buy, and make it mutually, good for everybody involved. I think you can bring people. That's perfect. I think you could do it.
Like me and Zach talked before about, he's like, there's rumors of 4 hubs next year. If you had a chance to do 4 hubs, what 4 stadiums will you have hubs? I was like, well, of course, Birmingham, because you've already been there and done that. Yeah. And that would be the host of the home games for the Stallions and the Bandits. Have one in Tulane in New Orleans, and that's be the hub for the Gamblers and the Breakers. You have one in Red Bull Arena up in New York. That'll be for the
Philly and
Generals and the Stars, and then you have one in Canton, and that's for the Maulers and the Michigan Panthers. Those are your 4 hubs, and they're in stadiums that are not massive.
Sure.
Especially Tulane, you put Breakers there, they can put 10,000 fans there because the stadium I think only holds roughly around 20. And Red Bull Arena is a perfect size for. We wanted the Guardians to be in Red Bull Arena, and then we're going to MetLife. Like what they doing? Like, come on.
I know, it's funny. We've been talking about it for years. You and I, the Red Bull Stadium is the perfect location for one of these spring leagues.
Yeah, but Vince McMahon's mind was set with MetLife because he thought WrestleMania, MetLife Stadium. Like, no, it's like you can't go to MetLife right off the bat. Red Bull is a perfect size arena, and I think that'll be a perfect. Again, that's speculation. This is just me, just hypothetically. Those were the 4 hubs should be.
So speaking of speculation, you know what? I think we should jump into the speculation zone. All right, Jim. I mean, you kind of teed it up. We were talking about where should the hubs be, this and that. You even said the Tampa Bay Bandits. Yeah. Well, here's something that happened over the weekend. We're in the speculation zone. We could talk freely about this. For everybody listening, this is not confirmation that it's going to happen. I will say where there's smoke, there's generally fire, but that's not based on anything I know or have heard. But let's speculate here. Over the weekend, Tony Catalina, a writer he covers the Cowboys for Blogging the Boys, SB Nation. I don't know if he's a big writer, small writer. First time I've heard of him, so sorry, no offense to him. But he put out a tweet saying, according to sources, Tampa Bay Bandits, the USFL, will be moving locations and changing names. They will be known as the Memphis Showboats moving forward. And then he talks about how the Showboats were established in 84 and they're coming back. Now, normally I would say, you know what, this is just another rumor. I'm going to hold off, maybe reach out to a couple people, try to get confirmation on it. Well, here's the thing. I mean, we run the USFL podcast. Not that we're privy to information from Fox, but we hear things from players, other insiders. The internet's a wild, wild place, my man. And
it is.
I would say for probably about the last 3 weeks, I've had more than usual people pinging me about the potential of a move to Memphis, the Bandits moving to Memphis. And I say, well, I'm hearing a lot of this. And I reached out to some folks and naturally, mum's the word. Can't say a thing. Once I saw this posted over the weekend, though, I said, okay, well, now, you know what? Now I could talk about it. I'm not going to confirm it. I'm not going to say if it's happening, if it's not going to happen. I'm not going to say that I even know or don't know. But, let's just talk about this. Initial thoughts. Good move, bad move by the league. The internet, it's kind of a little bit of a mix of both as far as like the online sentiment. But I'm curious. You're new to the show. Nobody's going to kill you for saying anything mean. What? Good news or bad news?
I'm just an NAL guy. Okay, I'm if it's not in the arena, I don't know what I'm talking about. I look at the Tampa Bay, of course, it's speculation. Yeah. If it's not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay market sucks. Period. Well, minus the Lightning, because the Tampa Bay Rays, back-to-back playoff appearances, they can barely get fans in their own stadium.
Empty.
Tampa Bay Vipers in the XFL couldn't get people in the stadium. I think, based on how it was presented in Tampa, the fan base and the community in Tampa didn't take to the Bandits. And you can tell by, you can look at even social media interactions. I think they're 8th of the league of social media people who follow them. I think I've heard someone say, don't know who told me this, that they're dead last in merch sales in the league too.
I couldn't say one way or the other, but yeah, okay.
I know. And one thing you can't lie about is their TV ratings. They were dead last every time they were on playing. They were dead last in league. So that does have a significant push into a league. Moving them to Memphis, the Showboats, still a pretty cool name.
Yeah.
They're moving. They have a stadium, Liberty Bowl. It's a and I wanted to step back to the greatest fail job of all football leagues, the AAF. Yeah. The Memphis Express had one of the better attending crowds in the AAF, even though their team wasn't that good. I think they were averaging 18,000 fans a game. That is something for a potential if the Liberty Bowl does become their official home, and if they do go to Memphis and they do go to eventually home sites, they had that stadium and they know they're going to get 18-some thousands. The reason why I say that is when the Vipers and the XFL played down in Tampa, they can barely put 9.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't great at all. I remember trying to get tickets. Me and my friends want to go down there. We can get 7 tickets for $70, right? And they were 5 roads from the field. I'm like, what? This is cheap. And I go look at the Houston, the Roughnecks or the Battlehawks. They were going for $40-$50 because of they were giving away tickets in Tampa and no one wanted to go. Right.
I think the potential move or this rumored move to Memphis is more of that the USFL knows if they go the neutral to home sites, Tampa will be that carbon copy of the Vipers. And this is a move like, you know what, let's go to an organization, to a city that doesn't have competition in sports. Like Tampa, during the time that the USFL is playing, that's playoff hockey time. That's Tampa Bay Lightning time. That's the Tampa Bay Rays are starting. Spring baseball is starting up, and Tampa is a hotbed for spring football, spring baseball. So XFL, USFL football is not that's maybe the fifth thing to do in Tampa during that time of year. And that's not, bashing the players. That's just how Tampa is. They have other professional sports, and you're competing with professional sports. Like if, let's say, the Jacksonville, I think they were the Bulls in the USFL. Let's say the Tampa Bay Bandits were awarded the Jacksonville Bulls. I guarantee you they would have been more successful in Jacksonville than they would in Tampa, because you don't have any sports you're competing with in Jacksonville.
Right.
At that time. But Memphis, you got the NBA. You got the Memphis Grizzlies. But football in Tennessee is a thing. Like, that's one thing about Tennessee. They love their football.
Right.
Look at right now. They're on the high because of the Volunteers. Yeah, they did lose, but they're still on the high. But you look at the past for Memphis. Like, you look at some of the old school throwback YouTube videos of the Memphis Showboats. They were putting people in the stands. That's why, honestly, the reason why they went back to Birmingham, the USFL, or went to Birmingham, is because they saw the Birmingham Thunderbolts. They saw the Birmingham Iron.
Yep.
They saw the original Birmingham Stallions, and you saw the support of the fans of that city. Birmingham, Alabama, they love their football. It's you talk to different people in Birmingham, it's either Bible, football, or football, Bible. It flips. Family's always third in Alabama for Bible football. Yeah. In Tennessee, it's very similar to that. And plus, Memphis, that's a city that's desperate for more professional. Like they were one of the last three cities to be in the expansion for the Titans, and they just thought, we'll just be here for a year and then we'll go to Nashville. Like Memphis was supposed to have the Tennessee Titans. Yeah. But now they're in Nashville. Knoxville's the Tennessee Volunteers. But I love this move, the potential move, because you're still in the USFL blueprint of Memphis. There is a history of football in Memphis, from the Showboats to the Express to the old Memphis Pharaohs, the old arena football team back in the 1990s, who, when they were expansion franchise, sold out every single home game and put 20,000 people in a building, and only 18. So it's a city that loves their sports. Even though the Grizzlies are on a high right now, historically they're a very bad team. Historically, they always put a good crowd in that building. So. And again, the Express from the AAF didn't look too good the years that they played. But they were putting 17,000 people in that building in crappy weather. I don't think they had a nice game. Every time Express, it's always either it was raining or snow flurries, and there were people there. Like, that city loves football. So moving the team, I think, is more strategic to get a fan base that would be more interactive or more engaged to their team. And plus, they don't have the benefit like say Birmingham or the Philadelphia Stars or the Generals, where they have massive municipalities that, we only get 0.005% of the fans. You're still drawing freaking 50,000 fans because the city's so freaking large.
Yeah.
And Tampa, if you don't make a big splash right off the bat, they don't care about it. That's more of like a Floridian thing, because you can look at the Florida Panthers in hockey down in Miami. Yeah. They're Stanley Cup contenders in the last couple of years. They don't care.
You know what it is? And I learned this living in Arizona. Florida is very similar to Arizona in that a lot of people that live in Florida aren't from Florida, right?
No, they're transplants.
And so they're fans of the teams that they grew up. Like me, I'm a Lions fan. I don't understand why. I don't get it. But I mean, it wouldn't be much better to be a Texans fan, I'll be honest with you. But
no, God must have put me and you on this planet to suffer, because we're Jaguars and Lions fans. So historically, we're either picking first or second between our two organizations. But also, it's called transplants. Like, you look down here, like the Tampa Bay Lightning are very successful. It does help to win 3 Stanley Cup titles in your history. But like when my Boston Bruins travel down Tampa, it's like me and my friends are like, me and my girlfriend wanted to go, man, we got to go get tickets. We go get tickets for this game. We're like, well, it's sold out. Really?
Right.
The game's not played for another 8 months. I'm like, yeah, it's sold out. Like, they love, like, the transplants. Like, the Buccaneers are different. They've been here for a while. That's actually some homegrown fan base.
Sure.
The Jaguars right now are going through that issue right now where they still have the fan base of Jacksonville, but it seems like every home game there's more opposing fans than the actual fans here. It's because Jacksonville sucks.
Right.
And that's what happens when you're a losing organization. You'll have more fan base from another team. And also Jacksonville is the cheapest ticket in the NFL, which I come to find very shocking because I think they're outrageous with the prices. $75 for a ticket. I was like, oh, it's the cheapest in the NFL. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I'll say this. This is to me because there was one of the big things not one of the big things, but one of the things I saw online mentioned by different USFL fans was why would they move the team? They're trying to get teams into cities and this and that. And I think honestly, again, speculation zone. I feel like that's why they're moving the team because they have an opportunity potentially to have a second hub in a city that again likes football and is one of the original cities from the original league. They already own the trademarks right now. I know Tony Catalina was talking about trademarks. Now I think this would be specifically around the logo because the league already owned the Memphis Showboats trademarks. Now let's double speculation zone here. Let's double it. We're already in the speculation zone. We're going to go a level deeper because, okay, they're potentially rebranding. If they're rebranding, I'm going to say, well, there's probably a reason. If they're rebranding, they're probably going to move. That's probably going to be a hub. Now,
correct.
I'll add another layer to that. If they're doing that, then I would say, I wonder if there may be potential talks on owners because I know that they're already looking at owners for these different franchises. Now, whether it's an owner, whether it's not, I do want to talk about potential owners because I have two names here. I think they're both interesting. One is they're interesting for different reasons. So about a year ago, less than a year ago, we all know the USFL versus the real USFL LLC. There was a lawsuit against the league from Steve Earhart. One of the last executives for the original USFL with the Memphis Showboats, interestingly enough. Shortly after the season ends, lawsuit settled. Mum's the word until this news kind of comes out. Now, you know what else Steve Earhart does here? He runs the Liberty Bowl. Now, you mentioned this. You know, if there's a stadium that they're going to go out there, it's probably going to be that Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, formerly Memphis Memorial Stadium. And I mean, they have a list of people they played host to. Again, Memphis Tigers. We talked about the Liberty Bowl, Southern Heritage Classic, but we have the Memphis Express, Tennessee Oilers, Memphis Mad Dogs of the CFL, Memphis Maniacs of the XFL, Memphis Showboats.
Still the coolest logo. I love the Maniacs
But then
logo.
we have the Showboats of the original USFL, the WFL of the Southmen, and some other one here that I'm not going to even try to pronounce.
North America South Soccer League. The Memphis Rogues.
Thank you. Now, I wonder if this is a play to get Steve Earhart, and maybe this is part of the settlement here. Again, I don't know. This is purely speculation. Your video froze, by the way, but we're just going to roll with it. But again, no curtains on this. I don't think there's any fixing it. People will get over it. Your face, you know what? You're not making that goofy of a face, so people will get over it. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I'll add glasses and a mustache to it because you're frozen there.
Yeah. Deal with it? Yeah, that'd be cool.
What do you think, man? Do you think this has any tie-ins to that lawsuit that has been settled? Again, this isn't based off of anything we heard. This is purely speculation, but it feels like one guy's involved in the lawsuit. The lawsuit ends. The league's looking at moving, and coincidentally, they're moving to an area that has some major tie-ins with the guy from the real USFL LLC. Smoke and fire situation? What do you think?
When there's fire, there's a forest fire. I think the lawsuit itself, the agreement, the settlement was this.
Oh, yeah. They're going to move.
We'll settle. You give me my Memphis Showboats back. You have the Liberty Bowl, and I'm part of the USFL. And they were like, okay, what team should we move? Oh, Tampa.
Yep.
And it's not like it didn't happen like that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we're talking months of work and lawyers, which my favorite people, lawyers, sign them up.
And the thing is that Memphis, that's, FedEx hub. Memphis is a bigger city. I know Memphis is trying to go after an MLS team. Most likely they won't get one. I think they have a USL team right now. That city wants more sports. They're just an NBA organization. They're even won the finalist for NHL. Because NHL has said that they're going to expand to 32, or I think they're at 32 right now. They want to expand more. Maybe relocation of a certain team that plays in the college stadium.
No, we already know where they're heading. Again, we talked about this.
They're headed to
No, they are headed to Houston. Houston's getting that NHL team. And I'm going to reap the real good rewards now, Jim, because I own NHLHouston.com. So sign them up. Get a team here as fast as you can.
So you're going to pull a Steve here,
Oh,
aren't
yeah.
you? Like, hey, so here we're going to do a settlement, all right? I own the team.
I don't need to own the team, but you know what? Sign me up on some sweet tickets or something, and you know what? We got a deal.
And so I hate to break it to you, but Jared Goff doesn't play hockey.
He doesn't play football either.
No. And I don't think you can get all the ex-Red Wing Hall of Famers to come down there to play for the
Gordie Howe's coming back from the dead to play for that team. He played in Houston back in the day.
Bobby Orr, yeah. Yeah, about that. But yeah, when you said where there's smoke is fire, it's true. But in my case, when there's fire, there's a forest fire. This is too coincidental. Like, oh yeah. It's like,
but like I said,
it's basically saying, oh, like Vince McMahon said, like, oh, I have a major announcement. I'm bringing football back, and everyone's like, oh, what league is he bringing back? And all the traditionalists are like, he's bringing the XFL back. Like, it's obvious. They're like, no, he's not. And then tomorrow's like, I'm bringing back the XFL. I'm like, oh, what a shocker.
Right.
So expect
it
that.
Feels like it's happening. Like I said, I'll say this, had it not been for, I want to say like 3 or 4 different people messaging me about this within the last month. None, I will say this, none associated with the league. Okay, so fair enough. But I mean, I was like, okay, well, something's happening. Whether it's happened, in the works, something's going down. And then, you know, like I said, this past Sunday, we had Tony Catalina. Then we also had at News USFL, which is pretty accurate with these things, kind of share those sentiments as well. I said, you know what? I think it's kind of fair game to talk about here, all under the guise of a rumor. I'm not confirming anything. I mean, I'll tell you this, my take, I think it's happening. I feel like it's happening.
Yeah.
Do I know it's happening? No, I don't know it's happening.
That's just like me and Zach with the NAL. Like, we get players that message you guys.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, we get messages all the time because we're the only sources for fans to listen to the game or talk about the USFL, or players to get a hold of contacts. And what really tough for us is that when we know some massive breaking news that's about to drop and we can't say anything about it, because if we do say something about it, our sources know who leaked the information, and then we're cut off by the league. Me and Zach knew that the Rebound Nets were returning for the Arena Football almost a year to 2 years before they were announced, and people were like, "Hey, what does the Arena Football need to do? Is pay for it? Oh, they need to bring back the Nets." We're like, yeah, we like, they have to. That's what the Arena Football is about. And me and Zach knew the whole time they're coming back, but we couldn't say anything. But it's for a lot of the people who watch your show and watch me and Zach's Inside the Walls podcast. We know so much stuff that we can't say because legally we can't.
Right.
Yeah, literally. Me and Zach have a contract with the league. It's like, we know a lot of stuff about the National Arena League. And if we say something, we might have a cease and desist type of order placed on us. So when people trust you and Zach for the USFL with rumors, like me and Zach do, we don't report on rumors. We'll talk about it, but we won't report, even though that the rumor might be 99.999% correct. It's like our voting system. It's 99% and still counting. I don't want to get on that topic, but a lot of people out there understand, oh, how many reported? 99%? Oh, means they should call it by now. Nope. That's how it is with the rumors and speculations of the leagues that we cover. It's like, we want to say yes. And it's like, you know what? You nail it, but we can't. Right. So,
well, and even then, sometimes legitimately, we know as much as we know, but even then, it's not the way I've always said it. It's never a fact until the league says it's true, right?
Correct.
And that's what I love about the speculation zone. It gives us an opportunity, to talk about these things, because clearly it feels like something's happening. It would be a shame to just ignore it until it comes out. And I mean, and the fun part about too is the speculation is seeing how much is right or how wrong you are when it does come out.
Well, very like what you mentioned earlier in the show, like the blue check marks. Usually when someone with blue check mark just said this, it means legit. Well, unfortunately, everyone has blue check marks now. So
that's right. $8.
So it's gonna be difficult. It's like he's on a blue check mark. But anyways, I've always wanted to say this to my listeners on our show, and especially you and Zach doing your show, and any other USFL podcast or XFL podcast, whoever does it. The way to build your audience, make the audience trust you, is you talk about the rumors, and you break the news when you know that you have 100%, 110% of the facts correct.
Right.
Now, player signings are different. And USFL, they have their ways of signing players. In the XFL and the NAL, a player can message us that, hey, I'm signing here, and you can announce it. Or they'll say, hey, I have this, and this. You talk about on the podcast, like talk about rumors and stuff. And that's how you build trust. I know a lot of your listeners and my listeners is they get irritated that we don't break the news or talk about expansion teams or talk about players signing with certain teams. It's because, A, we were told this, and we respect their decision, so this is why we're not breaking it. Like what Zach said to me, it's like you'd rather have someone else break the news and get it wrong than be the first one to break it and be correct.
We've been there.
Yeah.
Not with the USFL side, but I mean, I'm not going to touch on old stories, but yeah, I've learned my lesson. That's it. I mean, I've learned it. Right.
And that's our rule because of you.
You know what? Sign me up,
Yeah. But so for your listeners, I love the segment Speculation Zone because it happens every podcast. And I can't say I am a frequent listener, but let's just say I'll forget that you and Zach do podcasts in off season. Oh crap! I actually have some USFL stuff to listen to, and I may catch up like 4 weeks of podcasts in one day at work. And I'm like, okay, it's pretty funny. Just as funny as like to tell you guys this quick story. I remember downloading an Inside the Walls show because I like to listen to my stuff that I do and see how the show was. And then I remember recording you and Zach. And I remember it's like, hey, this is Inside the Walls. And after one episode, we forgot to put our actual outro out, and we actually put our intro back in as our outro. So I'm like, okay, we're going. Oh, another Inside the Walls podcast. And I hear it's like, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's like, how the F is the ref on the Inside the Walls? And I look on my phone and go, oh, because my phone went to the to USFL podcast.
I love it.
I'm like, dang it. But yeah, that's one thing I see you guys. You just passed a record, by the way. I saw that you reposted.
100K, baby.
We're about to pass. I think is 15,000 total views and downloads for us for an arena football podcast. I don't want to gloat, but I think we're the number one rated and most trusted podcast for the National Arena League, because we're the only one, and also we've kind of expired the league's individual teams to start doing their podcast, and I think we helped that. But anyone out there that's big arena football fans and you have an arena football team that you support, do a podcast. There is a community out there desperate for a show for that team. Just tell them.
Sure.
That's why the Inside the Walls has been successful. That's why the USFL podcast was successful. That's why the Ref Says was successful with the XFL. There's a community out there. And to gain trust from your community, breaking news that's factual will save your assets in the future. Then breaking a rumor that is completely false, because you'll lose your audience and you will never get that audience back, even though no matter how many players you interview, how many coaches come on your shows, and no matter how many graphics you do, if you burn their trust of a false breaking news, you will lose that audience forever.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to gain audience, but it's real easy to lose them.
So to the listeners on this show and to people on YouTube, that's the reason why me and the Ref and Zach do what we do for our shows. We have passion in these leagues, and we wait till the news is there. Now, we may, I don't know if you do this, but on my Discord, I throw some nuggets out there.
I mean, who doesn't? Yeah. Well, I never say what, but I'll say, hey, something. You guys might be happy this week.
I'll put some gifts that are codes, and people are like, I wonder what he's talking about. What's going to be talked about? And I see all the people answer the questions. I'm like, man, they have no idea what's coming. I'm like, okay. Then I was like, I'm breaking the news. I get a player say, hey, break this. And I go about to enter it, and someone already broke the news. I go, hey, what's going on? That wasn't me. And then players like, they shouldn't know that. And that person breaks the wrong news. And I'm like, okay, well, doing this. So I just like, again, a little tangent, speculation zone. The reason why we have segments like this, when we have it on the inside the walls, is because this is what makes our league so great. We're individuals who love our sport. We love to see our sport grow. But also, we don't want to be flagged to say, oh, well, they said this because that's factual.
Right.
No, it's not. If we don't see thing on the bottom screen says breaking news or this just in, it's not. Right. That's why I love the speculation zone. And in our segment we just talk about rumors, like the what if.
Right.
And we don't do that every episode. We just do it occasionally. And that's what helps, because if you break something that's not factual, you'll lose your audience. You don't lose all your audience. You'll lose half of them, or
even
less than half.
One is too many.
And, and for us, like for me, for an NAL podcast, we get average around 60 to 70 downloads plus YouTube views in that download. So it's 70 some total views / downloads an episode during the off season. You report something wrong and bad, and you lose 5 people. You're at 65. That hurts your algorithm. It's pretty surprising how YouTube does your videos based on, if you get 100 views, you see your freaking video everywhere on basic searches. Like, I'm going to see how to make this for dinner. And you see your video. I'm like, what the heck? Because it broke that 100 threshold. If you tick off the wrong base, you lie about something or affect something, and you report on something that wasn't factual, that 5 could cost you from my algorithm's going to spread over 50 states to my algorithm's going to I'm going to take a little dig here at somebody, may get people mad. The algorithm may help you with the 50 states, or your algorithm will help you expand to 54 states.
How did I know where you were going with that?
But for you guys, if you listen to NAL podcast, Inside the Walls podcast, arena football has a lot of rumors and speculations all the time because it's arena football. And we're not bashing you. I know you don't do this. You and Zach do the same thing. We're not going to give you false information and say we were right, point the fingers, because we know a couple podcasts that cover different leagues that they drop, oh, this is breaking news, and they completely fall flat on their face. And what do? They start pointing the fingers at the people who actually have the actual information.
Right.
There's been histories. That's the reason why we got out of the one league about that, because of a certain podcast that I think got sued or cease and desist or something. I don't know if they exist anymore, but they were the ones that report on the news that's completely false, and they blame us.
Right, yeah.
It's like, it's the newsroom. It's XFL podcast. It's them. I'm like, no, it's not.
It's the internet. That's why I love the internet, man. I love the internet. But this is why I clearly call this the speculation zone. I'm going to bring us back into this. So
go right ahead.
So we talked about Steve Earhart. I'm going to bring up a name. Now this is truly just to tail off your tangent here.
Yeah.
This is like triple speculation zone. This is like,
are you sure it's triple speculation, or is it a rating system type of speculation, like a 7.5 to a 10? Because this individual does that a lot.
I mean, one bite, everybody knows the rules, because I'll say this, back in March, we're talking here. So before the USFL even kicked off earlier this year, a certain gentleman that owns a certain sports organization named after something you sit on in a bar. That's right. Dave Portnoy, Barstool Sports. He tweeted out
El Presidente.
He doesn't even care to be verified. Still not to his day, even with the $8. He posted a picture of all of the USFL teams from the old school, the old original teams. He said Memphis Showboats is kind of fire. Now that's it. That's all he's ever said on it. Now, this is a real stretch. But if I'm thinking, okay, I'm Fox. I'm looking for potential owners of a spring football league. Dave Portnoy is kind of a perfect fit, because one, you almost have an instant, maybe not all the Barstoolies are going to jump over, but you have an instant fan base.
You get instant base. Period.
Instant base.
There's a type of clientele that they get their sports information just from Barstool. They don't trust ESPN. They don't trust Fox. They go to Barstool. Yes, that'll be. But the question is Will Portnoy and Barstool Sports work with NBC and Fox, unless Barstool Sports becomes the official sponsor of, let's say, the Memphis Showboats, and Dave Portnoy is the owner of Memphis Showboats. Then it's completely different.
Well, let's keep in mind, who has been trying to get a stadium named after him for the longest?
Barstool.
And so, I mean, the way I've always looked at potential ownerships is, everybody thinks owner of the league. But let's just look at MLS. That's a perfect example. Everything. There is rarely an owner. There's owners and ownership groups. Not anymore, but back in the day with the Nets, Jay-Z owns the Nets. Jay-Z owns 1.1% of the Nets. And some Russian oligarch, he owns the Nets. But everybody knows who Jay-Z is, right? And so I can see a situation here is maybe Earhart is part of the play. They get the Liberty Bowl Stadium. Dave Portnoy, maybe he's in play, or maybe he was in play. Maybe he was approached and said, hey, here's the deal, man. We're looking at selling off some of these franchises. Here are the markets that we have. But hey, here are also the trademarks that we have access to. What do you think?
And also, it may not be Memphis. Well, this is really speculation. It could be the Generals.
Right.
They're in New York, and Barstool is stationed in New York City.
Right. Well, and we're back, and this is before the league kicked off. This was shortly after they announced that they were coming and that Fox owned them. There were some rumors going around that Alex Rodriguez was in talk for the Generals as well. So this happened maybe a month or two after the league announced that Fox was coming with the league.
If you want to talk about icons that popped up for the ownership of the USFL when it first started, there's the biggest one in the room.
Oh yeah,
the biggest rooms. There's it's his league.
Well, that's the good old days.
We all know the orange man in the group that was rumored to be. I don't want to say his name because
we'll get demonetized. I'm sure. Yeah, but
he was it was A-Rod. It was him. It was crap. What's the Peyton Manning was mentioned.
Really? I don't remember that. I don't remember Peyton Manning, but I remember the A-Rod one. Say that?
They tried to get Spurrier for investment, and Spurrier was like, "No, I'm not." Yeah. He got burned by the AAF, and he's never, he never went back. I think there's. I want to say they approached. Dang it! What's his name? Geesh.
See, all I remember was the A-Rod one.
He's on Fox. He's on ABC, Fox's morning, or not Fox. He's on Fox Football, and he's on ABC mornings.
Oh, Strahan.
Michael Strahan. Yeah. There we go.
See, I didn't hear that. So you know more than I do on potentially speculation zone on this.
Well, speculation, there was rumors right after the end of the USFL season that the USFL was talking to the city of Jacksonville about putting the team in Jacksonville.
See, I didn't hear that either, man. We need to bring you on the show more often.
Well, I just listen to sports radio here in Jacksonville.
Okay, I got you. Now, let me ask you. Dave Portnoy, he's kind of one of these guys, though. 50-50. People love him. People hate him. Do you think if speculation zone, he is somehow involved or gets involved with the league, do you think that'll hurt him? Or do you think it'll help him in the long run?
It won't hurt him. It's Portnoy. Yeah. Everything he touches is he gets.
Unless it's Bitcoin. Let's be honest here.
Let's Bitcoin. He has the #1 rated fantasy football show. He has the #1 rated betting show for football. He has it used to be the #1 baseball podcast in the world. Now Jared Carrabis, I think, is with DraftKings or something like that. Everything he started Barstool Sports after just doing flyers every week. And now it's competing head to head with the big boys. Now you got other, for instance, there's other sport websites out there. Like I tried Unhinged Network. You've been trying with the Pro Football Newsroom, and like Belly Up Sports is out there. Those are people who want to have their own sports leagues, and then they island themselves off of Barstool Sports. Barstool Sports has that. Well, how can I say this? I don't want to make it sound political, but Barstool Sports has a tendency to, for what a lot of people say, attract that crowd. Yeah. Or what people say is the right side of the spectrum. But Portnoy, where everything he touches, like the Rough and Rowdy boxing tournament, 60% of all the money that gets in that tournament is donated to foundations and communities and to people in need, which is very good. He's not done with his money. He doesn't buy into things and just buy it. He has a mentality to fire people that don't need to be fired because they think their crap doesn't stink, and he just wants to show his story. It's like, hey, you can't do that here. This is Barstool. This is that. He fired some comedian who is very famous. Not very. He's an actor. Slash sports analyst.
Yeah, what's his name? The New Yorker guy. Yeah. Whatever. I know who you're talking about.
He fired him. He survived multiple lawsuits. He comes off as arrogant to a lot of people. And yes, what really got him, like, I think a lot of people love him, like him, but he is a Bostonian in heart. He's a diehard Patriot, Celtic, Bruins. He's everything Boston. Now, if there was ever a Boston team in the USFL, he'll be maybe the one there. Basically, he could call it the Boston Barstools,
yeah, right.
Whatever. That'd be a team name. But getting someone like that with his image and his business, one thing, he does. In every business, you're going to fail if you don't capitalize. But for Portnoy, and if he does get a team, you do know that he's going to put money into the team. He's going to attract a lot of sponsors. He's going to attract an audience that may not even watch the USFL right now to come attend. And also, there might be some betting stuff that can be added to his show and added to the Barstool brand. You got to understand, Barstool is just not a sports organization or a website. They have enough money where they can buy something, put focus stuff on it, and really, accelerate it. Because I think they've been trying the hardest to become like the official stream provider of some, like, a lower level, either hockey or baseball league, and they keep getting bet out. They're like, no, we're not going to try it because the people who wanting to be in that always look at Portnoy and look at the spectrum. Right. Got to get the spectrum out of the way. He's smart. He has a lot of money. He's arrogant. But then again, you'd rather have someone that's arrogant and has money, that knows what he's doing with his money, than be someone that's like easy money, not hard money ain't easy money type of situation. Like, if the USFL wants to make a splash and you want to attract more fans to the game, yes, Barstool is the way to go. And he also has money where he can enhance the game financially with betting, to promotions, to shows that can attract the clientele. Remember, right now in this day and age in sports, especially in the National Football League, 1/3 of the National Football League's money last year, a third that they made money off was off of gambling.
Yeah, I know. It's a big deal. Yeah, because like you mentioned, they have the Barstool Sportsbook now. And, I mean, we all know Dave Portnoy. You tell me if he's not in on this, that dude's not going to be wearing a USFL hat in every flipping pizza review, wearing a Showboats track suit or something in everything he does. Because he's a Showboat.
It'll be an investment, and one thing is that Dave Portnoy and Barstool have been actively searching to be either a massive sponsor for a league or become a partner in some way with the league for the last 5 years. He's been openly talked about that. He's even said that if there's opportunities expressed to himself to do it, he would do it. His ultimate dream is to be in the NFL, like a betting book or something. NFL, but him and Goodell have a they're banging heads. But what the best way to go to compete with the NFL with that type of like gambling or sponsorship is starting the USFL and start getting your fame, where when Goodell decides to step aside, that's when you can transition. But I think it's I'm not going to make this a USFL term. It could be a gamble, but it's the same thing. A showboat is actually a place where people went gambling back in the day. So technically, it's a gamble each way. I think if he's interested, the USFL should listen.
For sure.
Don't say, oh, agree, shake. Listen, because it's a clientele that may not be watching your game right now to start watching. Also, you may actually have some secondary streams on their website,
100%.
like how the Manningcast does. Like get some former USFL players and have Barstool Sports and build off a brand. You'll attract a brand that way. And one thing I want to say before we close out the show about this, these leagues need to realize that if an opportunity like that happens, always have conversation. Don't think that your crap don't stink. The more you are more openly welcome new ideas, the faster your league will grow and the more popular your league will grow. That's one thing that I've always said to the NAL owners and the governor of the groups that talk to me and say, what should we do here? I always tell them, always be open to new ideas. If you keep your ideas closed, you're suffering. Also, to all the owners and people who might listen to me, if you're an owner or a investor of a league, please, you're an investor of a league. Do not use your sports organization or your sports team to promote political BS. That will kill your clientele instantly.
Yeah, on either side of it. Let's just be on either side of it.
And I'm talking to you, Orlando Predators. You had a whole show hyping up some coach, and 90% of your show you were talking about the political, the governor race in Jacksonville or governor in the state of Florida. That's how you separate yourself from half your fan base. And for a league like the National Arena League, something you don't do. And especially in the USFL, please, sports is sports.
Which they don't have a problem with, to be fair.
There's certain things that you'll talk about that are acceptable, but don't make it don't publicize anything.
It's like bar rules. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about politics.
But when opportunities do arise, like Portnoy, even though the clientele that he favors or his clientele that's on what side, one thing he does do, he keeps business, and he keeps his personal view separate from his business. Is he a gamble? Everyone's a gamble. I'm a gamble. You're a gamble. But I'm a gamble with 1.2 million, or no, he's more than that. He's like $5 million net worth. So I am $4.9 million less gamble with him. And also I don't have a multi-million-dollar company that is Barstool Sports. So if, let's say, there's an opportunity, the USFL needs to listen because either it's a home run. If it's not a home run, you're still attracting more fans to the game that didn't watch the game before. It's a gamble, but at the same time, if it's a home run, you have a big partner in Barstool Sports. You may have more content. Crap, the USFL podcast might become a Barstool product.
Sign us up. That'd be
fun. But still, it's an opportunity. Portnoy, yes. I would love to have someone like Portnoy own a team because the team will represent him, and then you'll get the sassiness of what the team is. And one thing I love about organizations, especially NFL, when we look at the Dallas Cowboys, people they think of Dallas, but they also think of Jerry Jones.
Jerry World, baby. Yeah.
And when they think of the Patriots, they don't think of the players. They think of Bill Belichick or Tom Brady, even though Tom Brady doesn't play for the Patriots no more. So that also helps build characters, storylines, builds an identity of a fan base, a franchise where years from now you can build that into like in a rivalry. That's how rivals are played or created. Right now, you don't have that in the USFL. You have the old school rivals from back in the 80s. Then they try and make rivalry weeks, which is pretty that's understandable. But I've always said rivalries are not created by a schedule. Rivalries are created by a certain moment that may not be tied to a game. Can also be a trade. Can also be something that happens, especially in hockey. This is to close out this segment for me. The Jacksonville Icemen, my hometown hockey team, we have an arch nemesis rivalry against the Orlando Solar Bears. We're the closest two cities, but the rivalry didn't happen for a game. Didn't happen. The rivalry happens, Orlando showed up to this arena and refused to play because they felt unsafe in the arena because of the ice. And they went home.
Ah, okay.
There, the rivalry began. So Jacksonville retorted that the next road game was like, our bus broke down, even though they were in the facility. And thus the rivalry began.
I love minor league sports, man. I'll tell you what, dude, that's too funny.
You can't create a rivalry. A rivalry must be created by itself. It must form naturally.
Well, like the Wings and the Colorado, the Avalanche. I mean, they would have never been a rival had they not smashed Chris Draper's face in to the wall.
Yeah. It's like for my Bruins, my buddy's a diehard Lightning's fan. He's like, oh, our rival's Boston. Go, you think we're not rivals? Yes, you're our rivals. Like, no, our rival is the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's like, why Canadian teams? I was like, well, because it's Canada.
Right.
And plus, they're the original six. I'm like, yeah, Lightnings, yeah, you won your Stanley Cups, and you all think you're the big boys. No, rivalries take time to create, and I love. Yeah, I know rivalries are the USFL has been trying to create rivalries, but you can't just hey, these two teams are rivals. Yeah, in 1986.
For sure. Yeah, well, there's one rivalry that kind of got created. It wasn't through the rivalry week though. But I'd say the not the Bandits, I'm sorry, but the Breakers and the Stallions, just because they led up into the playoffs, they were having some pretty good games. It was always like a battle of the Breakers trying to get ahead. So I think next year, especially with a new coach, we could see that kick off. But yeah, you're right. You can't say it. It will happen, and it doesn't need to be two teams in the same division. Right.
The only reason why I said that is because I got approached by a head coach on the NAL that said, "Hey, this game, I want you guys to start manifesting something on our show, like on your next show." Or I was like, "Why is that?" He goes, "We really want this to become a rivalry in our league. Can you do something about it? Can you find a way to spark something either on their side or our side to make this a rivalry?" I'm like, I can say a couple of things, and I joked with the coach. It's like, you do realize that they used my comments on a show that I did about how they were playing sloppy in week 3, and they used my comments for the championship game, saying, "Oh, he didn't believe in us." You play like crap in week 3.
Right.
If the championship is week 17, like, come on. That's like, yeah, we can manifest something in the talking points, but if you don't execute on the field, it will never establish anything. Just to like homerism or someone just trying to spark flames. Like, you see the NFL all the time. Well, these two teams don't like each other. I'm like, well, one team's Miami and Seattle. They don't play each other every 4 years. How they don't like each other? It's not like Tennessee and Jacksonville or Detroit and Chicago, or Detroit and the traditional division teams. You can't manifest something. No. You have to. You can put the seeds there, and hopefully something grows. But you can't just say week 4 is rivalry week. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, look at college football. You can have rivalry weeks because you have Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Michigan. You have Florida State, Florida State, Georgia, Florida, USC, USC. You have all the rivalries that have been made because they have 70-plus years of history. Sure. Like, you can't have rivalries in 1 year. No. It has to grow into that. Sure. Same as the NAL. This is going year 7. You can't just, this is a rivalry. No, it has to grow into that. So I digress. I know we've been talking for 2 hours. This has been pretty fun.
No, it's been good. This is a good show. I never know. I mean, I've only done the show without Zach on a handful of occasions. One of them was by myself, and that was by far the worst show because I used to do shows by myself all the time. It had easily been a year since I had done my own show, and I get accustomed to having somebody to banter back and forth with. I hated that show. Other people said it was fine, but everybody, we're our own worst judge, critics. Yeah.
Especially if you have so many years. Honestly, we're getting the years of doing podcasts. Yeah. I've seen people that start podcasts are like, "Hi, this is." I'm like, "Oh, I've been in your shoes before." Yep.
And I try to give advice too, because unlike, this is the thing. I love the XFL and the XFL community, but there are some people in there that just make it more tough than it needs to be. And I never want to be one of those guys. Right, straight up. I always try to be, let's figure things out, because shit, bro, man, I got real life to deal with. You know what I mean? And that's the one thing I like about the USFL community is we all kind of get together. It seems like that for the most part with the NAL community, but there's one podcast, but they cover the IFL that that doesn't like you guys, or am I making that up? I might be making that up. Sorry. Anyway.
No, they don't. They don't do IFL. They're. That was a manifest, by the way. I know who you're talking about. No, that was created to build up beef for a game.
Oh, so I fell for it. Good.
Yeah. No, you're talking about the Smoking Guns podcast. No, that was. I was agreed behind the scenes.
Okay, good.
That wasn't. No. The other guy you're talking about is he actually the manifest rivalry was just a hype of the game. But the guy you're talking about actually worked for a company called Inside the Arena.
Oh, okay.
and they were salty because we cut ties with them, giving them information because they're the ones that break news on false stuff.
Got it.
Like they're announcing 3 expansion teams for a league, and me and Zach are like, "What? What are they talking about? There's no such thing. There's nothing's happening." No, that individual got fired from that website, and he's he's actually reached out to me to join Inside the Walls, and I'm like, "No," I'm like, "No, bro, no, yeah." But that was the beef, but. The podcast that we had the beef with was just manifest to just build up a rivalry for a game because they were an expansion franchise, and they got some fans now. They have a podcast right now that they're strictly covering the San Antonio. I forgot this Bahamas. What's the name of the new team in San Antonio?
Oh, the Brahmas.
Oh, Brahmas.
It's the noise I make up when I have to throw up. I'm like, excuse me, Brahma. You know, the XFL's not too happy with me, by the way. We should talk about this real quick because you and I, we met each other doing covering the XFL. Yes. Do you know what I did not too long ago?
Well, you refused to take your name away?
Well, I mean, whatever. But I leaked all their team names. Like, That was you? Me, yeah. And so I mean, I had this moment. It was real late at night. It was like a Thursday night at like midnight or 11:30 at night or something like that when I noticed it. And I was like, it was like you know me, Jim, I had like the devil and the angel on the shoulder. That was like, Stefan, that wouldn't be very nice. You know, if you ever want access to things, you probably shouldn't do that. And the devil's like, Stefan, did you know that they told all the XFL podcasts that they couldn't use the XFL in their name just in the last week? And the good angel's like, no, don't listen to him. And the bad devil's like, you know what you need to do. And the grin grew, and I typed away, and I dropped it out. Now, they turned off their online shop, which I feel bad about. I turned off their only form of income for like a month. Then they were supposed to announce it, and then the hurricane comes, Hurricane Ian, which delayed the event in Orlando, which delayed the event all over the league, which that, I'll be honest, at that point I was like, the league's changing some of the names. That's what I was like, they do not want me to get the scoop. They're mad, and I mean, there was not the greatest feedback on the Brahmas. I think a lot of the other names came out. People were a little bit weird about the Sea Dragons. Why change it from the Dragons to the Sea Dragons? But the Brahmas, I was like, they're going to change that one. They're going to change it. But no, hey, you know what? Sign me up. They became official on Halloween. And
I was right. They also stole the DC Defenders logo from a podcaster.
Well, we'll see about that. So they had their alternative logo, their secondary logo, was accidentally leaked by ESPN. You got to love these things. So ESPN's talking about the names and logos, and they put out a sheet with the primary and the secondary logo. Now, from my understanding, now who knows, Jim? Who knows? But from my understanding, from what I've heard, those secondary logos might not be final. Now, riddle me this, though. Why would they just make a secondary logo and then use a different logo? And that logo, you're right, is very close to a friend of ours who runs a USFL podcast, In the Shadows, Panthers podcast. Jake online, Cheese Soda, sign him up. He's joked that, no, they didn't steal my logo. But I'm going to say it does look eerily similar, their potential secondary logo. Whatever. We'll see how that plays out. But yes, they were not too pleased with that action. I did go I went undercover. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if I did a good job. I went undercover to the XFL event earlier this week. And you know what? I don't know it worked. Everybody knew I was the ref. It might have been the shirt. It might have been the shirt.
Yeah, no, you just dressed up like the ref going to an XFL event.
So, no, it was good. It was good. I didn't get the shellacking I thought I would. Everybody was pretty friendly there, so that was nice. Got to meet Wade Phillips. But, I figured, I told Zach about it, but I figured I'll tell you. Yeah, the league, things are just about as normal as they were in 2020. It's a love-hate relationship between the two of us. But I love the USFL, and I'll reiterate, I would never do that to you guys.
Well, I don't. Oh, that's one thing that really turned me off about the XFL this time around is when they sent out things to. I even got a message through my freaking email.
Oh, from your old podcast? It's not
for all podcasts. Like you cease to desist XFL, and I replied back to him. I'm like, I don't do an XFL podcast, and I quit it when the season folded.
Right.
Like you have no problems, and I was like, also, I think that's pretty low key trash telling people who support your league to not represent the XFL, and that's why you're going to see the USFL not do that to their fans.
It makes no sense. I mean, especially, it's not the first time. It's not the second time. You really got to hope third time's a charm with the XFL. Why would they? You would think they would want as many people as possible talking about it. But hey, you know what? We're not the XFL podcast. We're the USFL podcast. We're moving into season 2, but it is a funny topic to kind of end out on. Before we head out, your video's frozen again. That's not a problem. Here's what is a problem. We haven't mentioned where people can follow you online. How can people get to you?
You can follow me on Inside the Walls, MWallsPod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can follow my personal account, which I have no depth to my shallowness, at J-904. So if you want to get easily offended, follow me on there. Because screw you and what you believe in, and screw the other person too. Like, I don't take sides. Like, I love
and that's why I love you, Jim. And that's why I mean, this is good. You know, it's funny because Zach's usually the good cop. I'm the bad cop. I feel like we kind of have two bad cops on the show this week. You and I can't wait till we get to meet in real life because we've had some fun conversations online. But thanks for joining. Thanks for making sure I didn't have to do this show alone this week. For everybody online, make sure you go check out the Inside the Walls. Even if you're not a fan of arena football, I'll tell you, Zach and I watched a couple of games, and it was pretty enjoyable. So if you want to get into it, or if you are a fan, check them out. They're the biggest guys when it comes to National Arena League. But if you're looking for the USFL stuff, and for some reason you're not following us, at USFL Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're the most live over on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, here's what you need to do. Look down below. If that subscribe button is red, click it dead. And here's the real deal. Here's the skinny. If you want to know when we're dropping new videos, when we're going live, make sure you click the bell. It builds morale. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of morale that's needed nowadays. So go ahead and click that. If you're looking for some more gear, head up royalretros.com. You use coupon code USFL Podcast. This is how I know we're done with this show. Once I can't talk, 10% off.
So you're telling me that my show has a promotion code too?
Yeah,
I didn't know
we'll
that.
get there.
You were about to say Insight. I'm like, what? Wait, what? We have a promotion code? You're stealing money from me? What the heck?
Well, I mean, if I use your code, they'll use it and they'll get the money. But either way, USFL Podcast.
I don't even have a code, so you're just giving me free. You're just giving me free publicity.
10%. Save yourself 10%. And if you subscribe, hey, once we get to 5K, we're giving a jersey away. So let's get signed up there. But tune in every week, 9 a.m. Eastern on Friday. Until next time, sign you guys